The biggest thing that you're going to see on the Mac when the new macOS Tahoe is officially released in September, or possibly into October, is the visual redesign that Apple calls liquid glass. And that's not to be ignored, because it's very nice, but it is to be kind of pushed aside for a moment, because really there are benefits and there are improvements in macOS Tahoe that the new macOS brings to you and me as writers. It brings them to us for free, and already, actually in the earliest beta testing of it all, I'm finding that it's helping my writing and it's helping my writing business. Hello, I'm William Gallagher, and this is 58 Keys, which, as ever, as always, is for writers like you and me who write, well, I was going to say on Macs, but also on iPhones and iPads. Also, Mondays are just for every writer, and Fridays are for script writers. Do subscribe or like or all that stuff, because we have so much to talk about always, and this time we have a lot to talk about the Mac. As much as I depend on my iPhone and on my iPad, actually as much as I relish both of those devices, I offer that the Mac is the one for writers. I mean, well, the iPad was good and now it's great for writers, but the Mac, I really wouldn't be able to do the various jobs I do if it weren't for the Mac. And as I say, macOS Tahoe is already helping. It's helping me in about 3 ways that I want to show you as another writer. There are new apps that are definitely for us as writers. One, I think, for most writers, and then maybe a few. And then there are a couple of specific general purpose features on the Mac that might as well have just been created for us alone, but let other people use them. Why not? And then, well, actually, there's quite a lot more that I think at first appears to be just a visual change, but I think you find is really a productivity one. And those are meant for everyone, but we're everyone. We count. We can have nice things. First up, though, those apps specifically for writers. Well, really, Journal is the one. Journal is the one for all writers, and even then, not all writers journal, do we? I mean, I liked journaling, diarying, but I once had this such ferociously, inexcusably bad time with the Day One app. It destroyed a lot of entries, and I stopped years ago. So, thanks Day One, and if Day One would like to ever apologise for its error, I've only been waiting a decade now. Apple eventually brought out Journal, and I actually thought that would be it. That would get me back into all of this, especially because in typical Apple fashion, Journal had a more limited number of features compared to Day One or others, but they were clever ones. For example, well, you can obviously write into Journal about your day, but you can also have the iPhone offer up suggestions like where you went for a start. I mean, it's your iPhone. It has all these location tools. It knows where you went. Let it pop it into your diary. Or photos you took when you got there. All sorts of things. But the key word in all of that was iPhone. Journal was solely on the iPhone, and now it's on the Mac and the iPad. It's a little more limited on the Mac. It doesn't offer, for example, it doesn't offer any of those suggested ideas, the locations and photos, at least it doesn't so far. But you can elect to have them. You can click to add locations and certain other items. Really, just the killer feature here is that Journal is on the Mac. Yeah, it's on the Mac where you can have a full-size keyboard and write away into it. Anything else is a bonus, or would be a bonus, and perhaps more of this stuff will come. And perhaps, too, more will even come between now, the early testing stages, and the official final release. As I record this, a second developer beta of macOS Tahoe has just come out. And while I don't believe that it's added any Journal features, it has hopefully improved one thing to do with when you first open it. This has got to be a beta thing, and I don't really have a good way to, totally wipe my Mac and start all over again to see if this is fractionally better. But during the first developer beta, when you initially opened Journal on the Mac, it was empty and stayed empty forever. Well, for hours, really. Even if you had Journal entries on the iPhone, and they're supposed to come together. I mean, surely that'll be fixed. The sync will work. If it isn't fixed, the answer is you just leave Journal open on your Mac and come back tomorrow, and it's all sorted out, entries everywhere. Next on apps for writers, phone, new phone app. I think this only helps certain types of writers. You're not going to use it on a writing retreat when you're deep into chapter 9. of your novel, but it would already be helping me as a writer and in my writing business, because it removes one of the things that distracts me a lot, my iPhone. I mean, that distracts me in so many ways, but stopping writing to answer a call or stopping writing to place a call switches off, breaks my concentration in two. Being able to answer the phone, or really actually to place calls on the Mac, is going to be a boon for me in the type of writing that I do. I mean, I'm really curious to see whether it will help with interviews, whether I'll be able to, I mean, with the caller, the callee's permission, record phone call interviews, for example, record them right there on the Mac. I did try it, actually. I tried it using the third-party app Audio Hijack, which is in all ways superb, but in all ways also needs updating, free updating, each year when Apple makes a major OS release. The recording of the interview didn't work, and I can't yet tell whether that's because maybe Audio Hijack doesn't yet have the tools it needs to do that specific type of recording. It does everything else. I don't know whether the phone app intentionally, and actually not unreasonably really, blocks recordings, privacy issues. That would make sense. But I also don't know, because as of the first beta, the iPhone app is frustratingly buggy. Sometimes it rings, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it connects, sometimes you get the idea. I'm being very positive about it, even though it isn't working for me, because I know it is going to be how I make and receive calls in future. It isn't there now. And speaking of what isn't there, at the moment, there don't appear to be any keyboard shortcuts for the phone app. No obvious way to answer a call or end a call. What I'd really like to do, right, when the phone rings, do this: press a Stream Deck button to answer it while I carry on working, while I carry on making notes on the call or whatever. And at present, you can't do that. You can't have a keyboard shortcut that answers the call. And okay, since it's you, and since you're a writer, you're into detail, I wanted this button. I wanted a button so much that I also tried using the third-party app Keyboard Maestro. Now you can tell this excellent app to look for a certain image, like a button, on the screen, and then click it, please. So I set it all up. Then when the phone rings and the Mac displays its answer call icon on the screen, I press the Stream Deck button. It fires up Keyboard Maestro, which then looks for that button, finds it, moves the cursor dead center, and clicks. Didn't work. Since I set all of that up, most of the time no one's phoned me, but then when they have, the buggy iPhone hasn't always shown the answer call button for Keyboard Maestro to find. I might be putting too much effort into this, I fully accept that, but it's going to be so useful to me. It was worth me. I fiddled with all of this now, yeah, but in future, phone rings, I'll get it somehow. Phone rings, press a button, talking. Don't have to think about answering. Don't have to find the cursor and drag it over to wherever the hell the button is right now. Just press talk on. And that idea fits for me with what I think macOS Tahoe tries to do for us in terms of making us able to be more productive, making us able to ignore more distractions that interrupt our writing. Because macOS Tahoe has several features that expressly speed. There's a pun there somewhere, that expressly help us get faster. You may recognize this, or you may not. It's called Launchpad, and it's been a button on your Mac's dock since the dawn of time, something like that. I have never once clicked it deliberately, not until actually right now when I wanted to show you what it used to look like. There are writers I know who use it a lot, although purely anecdotally I have the impression that they seem to be people who only use the Mac occasionally and they write most on the iPad, and that, you can see that. Launchpad does offer a screen of apps that's quite a bit like the iPad or the iPhone's home screen of apps. I get it. Mac users, though, primarily Mac users, have many other ways of opening apps. I mean, right there in the dock, click straight there in the dock. You could press Command Space to open Spotlight or a third-party alternative to Spotlight and just begin to type the app's name, type the first couple of letters of the name, Spotlight and its rivals, find it in the list, you hit return, app opens, all this stuff. There are other ways too. There are better ways than using Launchpad, and I haven't seen a reason to ever use Launchpad at all, and now I can't. It is gone. Launchpad is dead. And in its place, and I actually mean literally in its place, right there in the dock, there's a new icon called Apps. Click on that, and it offers, in my impression, a much neater, much more concise view of your apps, and what's more, I think it offers them to you in a more useful way, a much more useful way. Instead of your whole screen being full of giant app icons and you having to either search or just swipe through the mess till you find the bugger, the new apps will offer you suggestions. Actually, it's just like on the iPhone. And just like on the iPhone, suggested apps, well, there'll be ones that you use most often, but it could be more than that. It could be maybe the ones you use most often at this time of day. It's intelligent, changing suggestions. And I haven't seen this myself yet, but apparently those suggested apps can include ones that are only on your iPhone. Okay. Out of all of that, if the one you want, the app you're looking for, is not suggested, well, it will be in one of the new categories below, probably. And actually, even there, just as before, you can search for an app. So to my mind, the new apps is better than Launchpad in every way. And I mean aesthetically, actually, from aesthetics to practicality. But actually, this apps icon in the dock, well, it's really kind of something else. It's part of Spotlight, which is pretty much certainly the most thoroughly changed and improved feature for us in the whole of macOS Tahoe. You and I could easily talk a lot about Spotlight. So let's. You open it the same way you ever did by pressing Command Space, and for the first few seconds, looks exactly the same as that. Well, not really, because it's kind of nicer looking, it's neater, a little bit more rounded, slightly more concise look, I think, but there's no mistaking the familiar Spotlight until you move your cursor even a slight bit, or if you tap the tab button. When you do that, Spotlight's bar blobs out into 5 sections, which always reminds me now of how Rover is born in The Prisoner, and I can see it in your eyes. That's a reference you're too young to get. Anyway, the first of the 5 sections, the 5 blobs, the long one is the regular Spotlight, and there are actually 2 things to say about this. One I think objective, one obviously subjective. The subjective thing is that it seems better. Spotlight seems to be better at finding what you're looking for and finding it quickly. Now, I can't quantify that, and actually most of the time I use a Spotlight, well, I use 2 Spotlight rivals. I use Alfred and Raycast, so I haven't been in Spotlight itself possibly since I looked at its last update a year ago. Nonetheless, it feels better, which is not to be, discounted. Objectively, though, it is better because once you've searched for anything in Spotlight and it's shown you a list of results, you also now get this row of buttons that help you filter down those results. That's brand new. That's good. But it's the rest of the blobs that are potentially more interesting, including especially blob number 4. It's the one at the end. And once all the blobs are on the screen, you can just cursor over and click that. But any time that Spotlight is on screen, you can also press Command 4 to jump straight to that 4th extra blob. Or there's Command 1, 2, and 3 to get to the others. But 4's the charm. Because option 4 is Apple's first ever clipboard history. You've had copy and paste for literally decades since it was invented by Larry Tesler at Xerox PARC, and yes, someone had to. Can you imagine? It's so normal, but somebody had to invent it. Once they had, though, other people came along and they invented the clipboard history, which Apple ignored for 30 years. A clipboard history means that, well, yes, you can copy something and then paste it somewhere else, fine, but you can also elect to instead paste something else that you copied 5 minutes ago, an hour ago, yesterday, last week. Doesn't matter how many other things you've copied in the meantime, you can go back to the one you want, choose that, and paste it right now, or any of them. Truly, you have to have this feature. You have to have this feature, and once you do, you will bite people before you'd let them take it away from your Mac. Bit excessive there, William, and yet true. There are dozens, right, of third-party Mac apps that provide this, and they'll do it either as their sole function or one of very many tools, and they are all great. Some are greater than others, but the whole thing, great. And now Apple's going to dent the business of those apps, isn't it? Because the feature's right there in macOS Tahoe. It is going to be on everyone's Mac without them doing anything else, without them buying anything else. And Apple's version is very good, except it is limited. As Apple always does, it's like it looks for this sweet spot between a powerful feature and a simple to use one. Putting clipboard history in Spotlight was clever, I think, and it will unquestionably introduce it to vastly more people, and those people will get a huge amount out of it. But it's still the case that rivals offer more. And most notably, that thing I said about pasting something you copied yesterday, every other clipboard manager out there just lets you do that, exactly that. No difference between yesterday and 5 minutes ago. Apple, no. Apple wipes the clipboard history after 8 hours. It does so for security reasons, which is reasonable, of course, but at present, in Apple's one, for those 8 hours, you could have passwords that you copied and clipped in the clipboard, therefore in the clipboard history, ready for anyone who can get to your keyboard to find them. Rival clipboard managers, Alfred Rakers and the rest, they all deal with this better. They'd allow you to copy and paste a password when you need, but they will immediately erase it from the history for the same security reasons. That's much better than losing it after 8 hours. Hopefully Apple's clipboard will become more like its rivals over the years. But if I'm suddenly sounding critical, and I am, but still, the presence of any clipboard history right there on the Mac is transformative, to the extent that if you don't happen to have ever used one, I almost envy you. It's just I can't think. It's unimaginable to count how many times a day, practically how many times a minute, I have been using clipboard history for decades. Actually, still more on Spotlight. I told you there's a lot to this, but let me show you another fiddly bit. Distract you for a moment. This is my Stream Deck. That's the Spotlight button that I added this morning, and when I press it, well, I get more buttons, and I can press to go straight to each of those Spotlight blobs. I'm sure that blob is not the right word, but I go straight to it. Since I ran a screen recording in order to show you how that was set up, I can tell you it took me 18 minutes, the giant majority of which was spent on making the little icons for the buttons. 18 minutes. 18 minutes when I could have been writing. But now, anytime I want Spotlight, I save at least a fraction of a second, don't I? So, yeah, come back to me in about 40 years and I'll be able to say I'm ahead of the game now. Except, actually, seriously here, something that makes a feature faster, even fractionally faster, is always a boon, not because of the time, but because of what it does, how it reduces the cognitive load. The thinking that you have to do to stop writing, press Command Space, then maybe leap across to the clipboard history, choose what you want, or whatever it is else you do in Spotlight, and then get back into your writing. I mean, it's seconds, incredibly fast, but it's still enough to just shatter our writing attention. I can't remember the figures now. I'm sorry. I just do all that typing. I can't remember where I read this, but it takes minutes for anybody to get back into any task, to properly get back into it to the level they were at before distraction before interruption. Destruction was a good word there. I think it's worse for writers. I mean, it's literally going to take me a long time to be able to say I've saved more than 18 actual minutes pressing these buttons. But each time I use them, it helps keep me focused. And yes, it's not like you need a Stream Deck for that. I happen to have the Stream Deck already, so I use it. Spotlight itself comes with more features that are expressly, it's that word again, for getting you to what you need to do faster and more easily. So let's take those other Spotlight blobbies, the ones on Command 1, 2, and 3. The first one is Applications, and you've already seen this because this is exactly the same as clicking Apps in the dock, and it's exactly as useful. The second is called Files. This seems to me to be just like regular Spotlight, except It's the only one that begins with having those filtering buttons already on screen. And does this make a difference? It shows results as icons instead of a list. Okay. Third is actions, and this is big. I think it's also potentially a bit confusing. Because of its name, because of its icon, that actions icon there is the same icon for shortcuts. And in shortcuts, each step when you're making a shortcut, things you want to happen, is called an action. But that's not the same kind of action, except it can be. What Actions does is offer you a quick list of things you might do often on your Mac, such as in this example, it's offering me to start a new draft in the Draft app or to send a message. Below this top list of suggested ones, which changes depending on what you do, there's a complete list of possible actions arranged in there, hundreds potentially by app. You can scroll down this very, very long list of actions until you find the set for the app you want, or you can start typing an app's name and get all of its potential actions. Such as here, typing OmniFocus and getting actions to add a new task to that to-do manager, or Pages, create a new Pages document. The thing is that this isn't like just a shortcut, faster way. It's not like a shortcut where you might quickly open an app and in it perform the task. With Spotlight Actions, it does as much as possible still in Spotlight. So that adding a new task in OmniFocus, for instance, I stay in Spotlight, but I can type in what that task is supposed to be, and then I can just tab over to other options. And in this case, I'm offered a list of OmniFocus projects that I sort my tasks into, and then there's more options, the tagging thing. That action is specific to OmniFocus. Or, for example, if I want to send a message, Spotlight offers me the specific options that are to do with messages. Type the message, then hit tab, start entering who the message is to go to. And then the message is sent. And the thing is, I know, of course I know you see that was quick, but what you didn't see, because it wasn't there, is any sign of the Messages app itself. And that is part of the boon for us. With Messages, with Mail, anything you like, you can now enter what you need to enter to do what you need to do and know it's being dealt with, know it's been sent off, whatever it is. Whereas what you used to have to do, you would actually open the Messages app or the Mail app to send something to someone, and fine, it works, it's quick, maybe you have more options even, but you also see what messages and emails have come in, and invariably there's something. Invariably we have to answer it. You see it and you are compelled, there's just no option. Invariably then our writing is interrupted, not for a few seconds to send a quick message, but for minutes, maybe the rest of the day. Actions in Spotlight therefore are great. I think they're also potentially a little overwhelming because there's so many of them. But even in the short while of music, you do get used to which ones you like and you use a lot. And then when you are used to those, when you do have a set you use a lot, you can choose to make those even faster. So instead of opening Spotlight, typing out send message, and then selecting the messages action for sending it, you could choose to have it so that you open Spotlight, type the letters S and M. Something's bothering me about that. Let me strike that. Let's phrase it. You can type SM, I think that's better, and hit return. SM, return. It takes you to that send message action, and away off you go, all within Spotlight. Apple calls this typing SM or any other short string of characters quick keys. And you can set this up for any action, and you can set it up for any action very easily. When that action is on screen, so you've searched for send message or whatever it is, and there it is in the list below you, or next to it there's also an add quick keys button. I feel like it should be add quick key, singular, but okay. Click on that and type a couple of letters that you'll be able to remember, and you're set. Anytime now you open Spotlight, you can type SM, hit return, and be right away writing a message. Actually, to be clear here, anywhere in Spotlight, you don't have to open Spotlight and then jump to the action section. Once it's set up, you can just go into Spotlight and do it. What you can't do, just to be clear, is you can't use any punctuation or modify keys in that quick key control. So you can't do Command M for message, for example. It has to be letters or digits, and any one quick key can have up to 12 characters, no spaces either. You do have to remember what you've picked, though. So your job is to make something memorable. Though actually, if you do forget, well then search for send message or whatever it is again, and next to it you will see the existing quick key already listed there. I said the liquid glass visual redesign was not to be ignored, and that's because, as well as I think it looks very nice. Actually, it brings with it some changes that I think make a difference to how we work. I think the overall aim is to make, you know, controls and tools and features easier to find, easier to use, but also have them never quite get in the way of our work. Whatever we're writing or whatever other work we're doing, that must come first, and everything else from, you know, menus and options, they have to kind of step back a little bit. And that starts, I think, actually with the menu bar. Initially, macOS Tahoe completely removed the menu bar, which I thought was fine. But then, you know, I know what a menu bar is. I've been using it for decades. If you were coming new to the Mac, I don't know that a vague line of floating controls across the top is terribly clear. The new second beta optionally brings back a menu bar background. Very nicely, macOS Tahoe gives you more control, though, over what actually goes in the menu bar. I mean, with a wide monitor like this, it doesn't really matter that much. But, I mean, if an app wants to put something in the menu bar, let it. I don't have to use it. Just takes up space, don't care. On a smaller screen, I care, because the menu bar fills up very quickly and becomes unusable incredibly fast. Properly written apps should let you choose whether to have a menu bar option of them or not. And most do, but not all. And now, doesn't matter, because you can control it all from system settings. You can decide which apps are allowed to display their menu bar icon or not. You also have control over whether, I mean, far away from the menu bar, items such as widgets, they can be full color or they can be transparent, pretty much as they used to be. And now it's the same with the dock. The apps in the dock can now be transparent or clear, as Apple calls it. And it's all this thing about pushing controls to the background away from your work. It looks great. But actually the dock one, I had to turn it off because I couldn't find the apps I needed. And you think muscle memory, I'd know where they were, but there's also been a redesign, as well as apps icons being made clear. Third-party apps icons are shrunk slightly and put inside the border, so they're just not quite as easy to spot. Yeah, turned it off. Yeah. I'm a tiny bit surprised about this, but I think you and I need to talk for a moment or five about Control Center. Control Center was also actually adjusted in the new second beta, going from very transparent to slightly less transparent. And actually, in this case, I was totally fine with transparent, and I think all it meant was that the old border around the controls wasn't the same solid color it used to be. It was like you had controls floating together in formation. The thing is, this could just be me, I realise that, but while I use Control Center a lot on my iPhone, I hardly ever touch it on the Mac. And I don't know that this is going to change, but I can see Apple having a very good go at persuading us. So even if you don't use Control Center any more than I do, the new version may change your mind, because Control Center is one of the key features that have been updated in macOS Tahoe, and its usability now, plus its usability in the future, is key. Two reasons for this. One big one is that you're going to be able to use third-party app control. So it doesn't just have to be Apple's own, although actually saying that Apple is now offering just a slew of controls. I mean, turn Wi-Fi on and off, low battery mode, switch focus mode, set time, anything. A developer will now be able to offer their own one-button controls, and I'm really curious to see whether they do. Because if they do, then we may also take advantage of a second new Control Center feature, multiple pages of controls. Unlike on the iPhone, where you can now swipe down to open Control Center and then keep swiping down to further pages, on the Mac, well, you have to set them up, but you set them up as separate icons on your menu bar. You know, I think it's a little bit fiddly. Actually, I think there's precious little chance you would stumble on how to do it unless you were shown, but, you know, again, could just be me, I had to be shown. But it could be in future, it could mean in future that you have one Control Center for all of your apps, another one for music, maybe another one for shortcuts, And actually, right now, you can add a shortcut to Control Center, or you can have Control Center open a whole folder of them. From the way it works, and you're setting up, it looks as if you should be able to specify that it opens any folder of shortcuts, but in practice, no, it will only ever open one called Menu Bar. Maybe that will change, or maybe you'll just stock up your Menu Bar shortcuts folder with whatever you want Control Center to have. Oddly though, if you do use Control Center to open your Menu Bar shortcuts folder, it doesn't open in the menu bar. It opens as like a panel of options roughly in the middle of your screen. No, actually, this is so odd. It's the same if you look for the old shortcuts icon in the menu bar, you'll find it, but when you click it, instead of the old drop-down menu right there as it used to be, you now get this pop-out panel roughly in the middle of your screen. But anyway, speaking of shortcuts, we're leaving Control Center and going to shortcuts because there are new ones and they're significant. Significant enough that it is worth getting into shortcuts now, even if you haven't before. I mean, even much more than Control Center, shortcuts now. That's the thing. Really, shortcuts now has actions, steps if you like, to do with Apple Intelligence. And as I said in the video for the new iPadOS 26, that changes, dramatically changes, and you may now get something really useful out of Apple Intelligence. Okay, just to get something out of the way, shortcuts does now include writing tools. So all the stuff that Apple Intelligence offers about, rewriting your work to be more concise, more professional, more friendly, more threatening, whatever it can do. All of that is available to you in shortcuts, and I don't expect actual writers to pay any more attention to that there than they did before. I mean, writing tools may help some people. I'm not in any way saying that they can't, but they aren't for writers. That name, writing tools, is a problem to me. I mean, maybe the proofreading one, okay, maybe that feature is useful, but if we want our writing to sound friendly, we write it friendly. If we want our writing to be more concise, well, then we edit it. But there is this one other Apple Intelligent shortcut action with the seemingly unpromising name of Use Model, but it's stupidly useful. What it does is let you write an AI prompt once and have it act on anything you chuck its way. For the Three Biscuit guide to the iPad, the new iPadOS features, I tried to be clever and show you a new shortcut I wrote that records me talking for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or however many minutes I want, and then transcribes it all, and then sorts that transcription into coherent points, and then readies those points to become tasks in OmniFocus or any other to-do app. I think I was so smug about having written that shortcut that maybe I deserved to have it fail in front of you, and it did. It crashed on the iPad. I think actually, because I'd recorded, 30 minutes of yapping away, and it just fell over. It said it was interrupted, but I can't see why. So, with as much ado as I can, here's the same shortcut on the Mac. Here's the same shortcut failing on the Mac. I can't account for that failure in the Mac. I talked for about 5 minutes or so, but then I waited a further 5 minutes for the shortcut to finish, for that dialog box to go, and it just never moved. I promise you this works on the iPhone. Actually, I wrote it for the iPhone, but I think iPhones go to sleep after at most 5 minutes, so I had thought it'd be better on the iPad or the Mac, where they can just go on forever, but apparently I'm wrong. So far. Beta software. What can you do? But, really, I strung that shortcut together in a few minutes, and I have now used it 3 or 4 times when I've been stuck on a big project for me anyway, or just juggling a lot of things and struggling to get it all moving on time. And each time I've used it, I have ended up with a coherent, useful breakdown, a coherent set of actionable tasks that I may possibly then have ignored. But as I say, I worked on the iPhone. Actually, hang on, I have an idea. Okay, I am so not doing well with this. But that was iPhone mirroring, which came in last year, unless you're in the EU. And overall, it's already proved, I mean, ridiculously handy. I just do not know why. But between that and being able to place calls from a Mac via my iPhone, I'm going to be taking my iPhone out of my pocket far less often. Oh, and actually, while I'm saying that, there's one more thing about this iPhone Pocket, all that stuff, that I think that means macOS Tahoe gives us the ability to concentrate on our writing more. Live activities. This is an iPhone feature, right? That's, oh, it's just tremendous, isn't it? Because right there on your lock screen, if you have a compatible iPhone anyway, you have a constant update on screen of certain things. I mean, I understand, for example, you can have sports scores. If you follow any sports, they just update throughout the game, the match, whatever it's called. But I've used it for restaurant takeaway delivery times and for flight tracking. Live activities on the iPhone, great. And now, again, unless you're in the EU, there are live activities on the Mac as well. You still have to set this thing up, set up the delivery or the flight, whatever it is, on your iPhone. But once you have and the iPhone is showing live activities, well, the Mac's menu bar shows you that same live detail. It's small, I mean, especially on a large monitor, teeny, but you can click on it once to get more detail. And then if you choose to, you can click once more and the Mac opens up that iPhone mirroring you just saw and takes you straight to the app doing the flight tracking or whatever it is. I said that there was a new test version of macOS Tahoe that came out just as I'm recording this, and it has made some changes. I also said that there are things you just surely couldn't stumble across unless you were shown them like I was shown them. So I know for certain that there will be more changes, no question. And I suspect that there are more things I haven't found yet. Plus, there will definitely be developers who add new features to their apps to take advantage of all the things that Apple now offers them, but possibly chief amongst those will be particularly how developers can now use Apple's own tools for Apple Intelligence. I mean, I've already found that you're so much more useful since it's been in shortcuts, yeah, but in app, I can't actually imagine what developers will bring with that. But then that's why I'm not a developer. So looking forward to seeing what they do. Actually, maybe if I were a developer, my big new shortcut would work everywhere. But it does work on the iPhone. It does, I promise. Oh, and actually, okay, as this first goes out, next week's 58 Keys is all about the new features on the iPhone, and I'll show you working there. I will. Just as actually last week's was about the iPad and it failed. But do take a look at both. I'll add links below as the new one comes out as well, so that will be there. And in the meantime, that's it for this edition of 58 Keys. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourself, eh? And write more. That's somewhat important, isn't it? And I'll see you soon.